if you're following stuff about aliens and about UFOs and what U.S. lawmakers are saying about all of this, you know things are very confusing right now, and deep fact-checking takes time, so just know that I am working on it. But speaking of time, we always have time to talk about the biggest questions in the universe with a professor I consider to be one of the greatest minds in the universe, none other than theoretical physicist Dr. Michio Kaku. Professor, thank you so very much for joining us. I know you've been following this whole UFO, UAP, Congress finally taking things kind of seriously saga. But let's just put all that aside for today, because so much of the conversation today about UFOs seems to be centered around this idea that if they do exist, they have come from some other planet. But instead of just asking where they come from, do you think we should be asking when?
Well, first of all, journalists always say, follow the money, follow the money. We physicists say, follow the data. And previously, we didn't have much data to go by, except somebody saw something in the sky. What does that mean? Now we have hours of videotape from the United States Navy. We can measure the data from these videotapes. We now know that these objects can travel between Mach 5 and Mach 20, up to 20 times the speed of sound. They can drop 80,000 feet within a matter of a few seconds. Not only that, they can also fly underwater. We have videotapes of, yes, them diving into the oceans and then swimming underwater. Now, we don't have that capability with our rocket ships. Our rocket ships are not maneuverable like that. They can't go between Mach 5 and Mach 20 within a matter of a few seconds. But these objects are now on tape. We have videotapes of these things, and we physicists are now taking them apart frame by frame to analyze what is the state of their technology. And so far, it seems to be beyond anything that we can field with our arsenal.
So if it's beyond what we can build from our arsenal, there seems to be a bunch of different possibilities. One of them is that if they're capable of traveling this fast, they traveled across the universe. I gotta ask, do you think it's likely that we're seeing a higher intelligence coming from a different part of the universe, or is there a possibility that they may be slipping the bounds of physics or at least dimensions as we understand them today?
Well, it used to be that the burden of proof was on the eyewitness accounts. Martha, I see something in the sky. That's not a burden of proof. Now the burden of proof has shifted. Now the military has to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And just remember that a Saturn rocket traveling at tremendous velocities would take 70,000 years just to reach the nearby stars. And these objects apparently can navigate between star systems in less than 70,000 years, which means that there's a technology involved here that is beyond anything that we can feel here on the planet Earth. And so this is not proof. We're still analyzing these photographs, but we need more data. And for those of you out there who want to email us scientists about their sightings, we have a word of advice. The next time you are kidnapped by a flying saucer, for God's sake, steal something. A pen, a pencil, a chip, an alien technology. Steal anything, because there's no law. There's no law against stealing from an extraterrestrial civilization. And maybe we'll have bragging rights after you come back from outer space.
I can't wait to see that played in some sort of intergalactic court where it's like, well, Dr. Michio Kaku said it was okay. I want to ask a little bit more. Do you think it's more likely that that these could be possibly time travelers through, it seems like a lot of the descriptions that we hear are still relatively close to humanoid figures or using conventional shapes that we're used to. And yet, Fermi paradox, you look at all the different planets out there, you know that the composition is not like it is on Earth. What do you think is more likely, that these things are, if they are true, traveling across space or traveling across time?
Well, put it this way. On average, when we scan the heavens and look for planets circling around other stars, on average, 1 out of every star has a planet going around it. Now, within the galaxy, We're talking about tens of thousands of stars, and yet every single one of them on average apparently has a planet going around them. So how many planets are there? Therefore, we're talking about billions of planets right in our own backyard. So we can't dismiss the possibility that these objects could have a technology beyond anything we can muster. Now, traveling near the speed of light, we can't do that. But there is a theory that says that wormholes may allow us to take a shortcut through space, just like Alice would go through the looking glass to go from Wonderland to Oxford. And so that's a technology that does seem to be within the known laws of physics. But other than that, we physicists have a hard time getting our heads around the fact that if these things really are extraterrestrial, this means they can sweep across the galaxy in a blink of an eye. We can't do that.
So let's say that's true. When it comes to time travel, or I mean, you study string theory. Is there a possibility that they may be that we as three-dimensional beings that can kind of perceive this fourth dimension may not be able to see everything around us?
Well, Stephen Hawking, the cosmologist, before he passed away, said that wormholes may take us faster than the speed of light as far as space is concerned. Time travel, he was a little bit more skeptical about because of the fact that if you go backwards in time and do it repeatedly, you would create a loop and you would create enough energy to blow the whole thing apart and your time machine would explode. However, there's a fault within Stephen Hawking's proof. You see, if you go backwards in time, the river of time may fork into two rivers, in which case, when you save Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated at Ford's Theater, you've actually split the universe. So in one universe, Abraham Lincoln survived the assassination attempt. That's when the river of time forks into two rivers. In that situation, you don't have this time loop. You don't have this infinity of universes going backwards and forwards through the time loop. And then maybe, just maybe, you can go backwards in time. I wouldn't bet on it, but you can't rule it out either.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of the multiverse. And with that, we ran out of time. Dr. Michio Kaku, to be continued. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.